Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called Gun to a Sword Fight, written by, that's my account, LOL. Fleet Admiral Octung was the finest admiral there was in the YepThatsMyAccountLol Confederation. Charismatic, quick-witted, and a brilliant strategist. The only thing Octung wasn't great at was close-quarters combat. Not like he'd been much of any, operating a destroyer in the middle of a fleet of several hundred ships, which were now headed to a conflict zone between the YepThatsMyAccountLol and the Terran Commonwealth. Yeah, the conflict had been going on for a short while. Neither side has really made any major advancements, so the conflict over the planet of Pluto had been reduced to a war of attrition. Till now, Octung was commanding the largest fleet of the YepThatsMyAccountLol, with all of their smaller fleets combined into one giant mass of destruction. And in the middle of them all was the magnificent 12,000-foot VLR laser railgun TM. If it didn't destroy a large amount of the human fleet, then it would destroy Pluto, which is gonna end the conflict anyway. As the fleet traveled through the use of FTL, Octung was in the main conference room before being quickly called to the main bridge by the slightly panicked second-in-command of the fleet. As he came into the room and looked at the window, he saw nothing. "Nothing seems to be wrong," Octung exclaimed. Humans were known to be sneaky SOBs, but they'd be getting peppered with shots if that were the case. That's the thing, sir. There's no fleet. Even when we checked everywhere for any radiation emissions, comms chatter, or anything for that matter. Even the human Pluto colony is silent. No lights or power detected. The only sign of human life is a mining vessel currently using gravity beams to drag some dug-up ores. There seems to be only 2 humans on it. There's no human military symbols on it either," responded the second-in-command. Hail the mining vessel. Maybe the humans finally gave up the planet after realizing how much of a hassle defending it. Also, try to appear non-threatening. "Will do, boss." Octung pondered for a moment what this lack of Terran activity could mean. He relayed to his fleet to stay ready in case of any ambush the humans might think up, but to not fire any shots unless shot at or said to open fire. On the main screen of the room, a human's face lit up, dirty, disheveled, fitting an operator of a mining ship. The human didn't look too surprised at being hailed by hundreds of ships, though, so Octung felt a bit of respect to him being calm in the face of overwhelming odds. "Oh, you came way fucking earlier than I thought so. In any case, welcome to the ex-colony AV Pluto, sir, Mr. Admiral Octung." It was clear that the accent on this human was heavier than in most cases. In any case, the course of action was the same. "Welcome, human. This planet, seeing as it seems to have been abandoned, is now under the property of the YepThatsMyAccountLol Confederation. It would be kind of you to vacate the space as soon as you are ready. We have to secure the planet in case any pirates would want to try their luck." "Oh, gobshite! I wasn't done talking to you, buddy. The colony was evacuated, but not due to cowardice. Simply put, we were challenging you to your species trial by sword." Okay, Octung was getting kind of tired of the accent. Either way, a trial by sword. An old tradition that was never abolished. Fortunately, YepThatsMyAccountLol was some of the greatest melee fighters there were, so that would mean success either way. "Very well, we accept your challenge. When shall we meet up and fight?" "Right now." "What?" Octung said, befuddled. "Well, it seems you didn't bring a sword here, but considering axes are also used in your trials, I think that railgun counts," the humans said before their vessel started slowly approaching the planet. "I don't understand. Aren't we supposed to?" Octung explained before the vessel shot out a gravity beam towards the planet, specifically a pointy tall building. "God, Bulk, come here!" the human shouted as the gravity beam started to rip out the building from the ground. No, wait. It was sliding out of the ground. There was no damage visible. It also seemed to extend far under the ground. It was a good several seconds before the full object came into view. Several dozen kilometers long, weighing tons upon tons, out came a steel greatsword of human design. It was quickly ascending towards the vessel before stopping in a blocking position in front of the Octung fleet. What? "And guard, you fucking idiot!" the vessel advanced to the fleet. "Shoot!" Achtung shouted at the bridge. A shot rang out from the laser railgun, vividly heard through the ship. The human vessel swung their sword. They parried the shot. A clean line of destruction traveled through the fleet, destroying dozens upon dozens of vessels. The vessel approached. "Untaste de riposte!" The sideways slash. As the sword traveled through the fleet, some tried evading by going up, backwards, or down. None of it worked, as it was seconds before hitting the main ship. Achtung muttered only one sentence. "Hacking Irish." End of story. Story number 2. Humans are Cronenbergs, written by JohnGaldt. Chloe sat up straight, shoulders back, her hands clasped together on her lap, with one knee over the other, in her little barred prison cell. Her clothes were shredded with bullet holes, scorch marks, and little punctures from the shrapnel, but she was pristine. The floor vibrated gently as the loud kabshoom sounded somewhere in the ship. It was followed by another and another, the sound of long-range missiles being deployed. Her ride was here. She needed to get out now or never. The lights winked over to yellow, and her 2 guards looked to one another, strange long-nosed wolf creatures with fur sticking out between armored plates and little tufts. They looked like space werewolves. "Oh, she's not going anywhere. Let's go check," said one of the Galactic Standard. They'd taken Chloe's translator, and thought that gave them privacy in the conversation. "Watch the human," snarled the other. He opened the bridge's door, giving Chloe a brief glance of dozens of crewmen running down the main corridor. There was another volley of kashooms rumbling through the ship as he lingered there. Chloe rose to her feet, sweeping her platinum blonde hair back. "Human! Stop, human!" barked the guard in broken English. Chloe fidgeted with her fingers and darted her eyes toward the roof, flinching at every sound. It was her best, nervous human impersonation she could do on such short notice. The battle might cause a breach. I need a respirator. Oxygen. Breathe," Chloe said, putting her hand to her mouth and breathing quickly through her fingers. The guard's eyes went wide and reached up to his own snout. Do we have emergency masks?" he barked to the other. "Gotcha! I'll get them," said the distracted guard number 2. Chloe stood at the bars, holding them firm, fingers tightening until her knuckles turned white. The lights dimmed and the room suddenly hummed, the hairs on her arms prickling and standing on end with all static in the air. She felt like a fork in a microwave. Long-range razor fire had opened up. I'm scared," she said, while slipping a foot out between the bars. "Human, remain," he started. He didn't get to finish. She lowered her hand and swung her lower body out between the bars, her shoulder and leg narrow waist slipping through, until her legs wrapped around the creature's shoulder and neck. He pulled away, but she already had him tight. Something cracked in her chest, ribs popping in a rattling sound of carnage as she was tugged and forced out between the narrow bars. The gap was far too small for her head. The air exploded out of her lips when the butt of the gun was slammed against her waist. It clattered to the floor and a knife appeared in the creature's hand. Chloe grabbed the bars and forced her shoulders away. A sickening loud crack in her neck was all she heard. Fast-flitting thoughts of panic, wordless fear raced through her mind. The world was black and she felt nothing, like her body had been flicked off like a light switch. Slowly, it came back, the feeling of motion and clawed fingers scratching at her own body. A knife puncturing repeatedly through the meat. She attacked the strange sensation, but her hands slowed. Torn clothes falling off of her body, and finally eyes opened. There were a long trail of web-like strands of flesh stretched between her and the open-mouthed human skull on the far side of the bars. She dropped the knife and swept her hand down her arm. The fur, discarded flesh and cloth, all falling away in sheets from her pristine new skin. The ship hummed around her with more laser fire, shaking her from her stupor. Chloe's body was emaciated and thin, a skeleton of a former self constructed of what little viable biomatter had existed between the two corpses. She pulled away from the dry strands of decomposed skin, like pulling out a spiderweb. The air was hot and wet, her skin patched and discolored with alien blood that was quickly absorbing down through her pores. She stuck to the wall by the door, pressing herself flat against the cool metal. Distracted guard number 2 raced back into the room to see the mess of twisted meat and dropped the 2 wolfman masks. "Grex," he said. Chloe slunk down from the mantel, gangly thin arms wrapping around the wolf's back, her legs snapping up around his waist and pinning his arms against his sides. They tumbled together to the floor, her mouth filling with fur as she bit down on his neck. He thrashed and writhed in her arms, howling out. Thick black veins ran from her skin into the creature, diving into his armor and running up his face. Her body started to fill out, growing stronger and bulkier, her legs able to draw tighter around his lower half. His struggles were eased, his body shrinking down like a vacuum-sealed bag of bones. Chloe turned to the open doors where engineers stood, eyes wide and mouths agape, wrenches in their hands like makeshift clubs. Chloe grinned to herself as she peeled herself off the corpse at her feet. "Please tell me you don't have any flamethrowers on the ship," she said as she ran towards the crowd, diving hands first into the mass of surprised crew. Her bones snapped, but quickly reformed into new, longer limbs. She drove fingers into stomachs, and her third and fifth hands grabbed at heads and faces. She lost track of her body, and a sea of flesh writhing down the corridor. There was so much to focus on, her body struggling in a headlock, gunfire rattling away somewhere else, the pop of a grenade exploding, eating away the substantial chunk of her somewhere. She wrenched the still dissolving bodies along with her, crashing like a wave into doors and spilling through the gaps. Sounds of fighting eased, the weapons drawing silent. An unfamiliar limb scooped up her old clothes and dragged them along, retreating with the rest of her down towards the cargo bay. The ship hung hot and silent, the air so thick with humidity that you could practically swim. It condensed on the walls in little droplets. The ship listed to the side slowly, tumbling, crewless. She sat, inspecting the back of her hand, flexing her fingers one at a time, remembering her old self. There was a loud rumble ahead of her, and the cargo bay door started to open. Chloe rose off the crate, back in her old clothes, skin pristine, and back in her old human shape. The walls were a twisted portrait of teeth, fur, discarded flesh, and empty veins, all in large swirling spirals radiating away from her. "Ship's clear. Can we make sure I'm not captured by a race that's not so fluffy next time?" she called to her crew. Humans are Cronenbergs. End of story. I'd quickly like to thank the T5 peeps: Bitmori, Terran on Air, Cold War Boomerwaffen, Severin Cerberus, Red Panda 121, Leslie 517, Bushmaster 177, Casper Arnholtz, Cam Maxwell, Lightsjock, Dragzoon WRE, Lord Azrakul, and Arcadian. Thank you.